Okay, guys. So today we're going to start a new section. Last class on Friday and last week we finished looking at this listening section, second section of the test. So today we're going to be starting with the speaking section, the third section of the test. Let me see. Okay, guys. Well, the speaking section is the third section of the test. It comes right after the listening. Remember that in this new version of the test that is shorter, you don't have a break, right? So you have reading, listening, and then right off speaking, no break. So be prepared, Actually, I just had a student who's taking the test very recently, and she was telling me that she got overwhelmed because it was too fast. Even the listening was faster because she took the test before, and she said that everything was faster. Like they cut down the instructions because the instructions in the past, they gave you some time to breathe at least, but now they shorten the instructions. So it's gonna be question after question. So be prepared for that. Remember to take simulations so that you prepare yourself for the experience as well. Guys. Okay. So in the speaking section lasts about 20 minutes. It's very fast. It goes without even noticing. And it's over 30, just like the other sections. And in the speaking section, even though it's the fastest one in terms of time, the speaking section happens to be the section where you will have the most amount of questions. In the speaking section, you will have a total of 4 questions. Each one is different from the other. So we're going to see them one by one. We're going to see the format of each, how to answer each question, and the structure and sample responses and everything. Now, in the speaking, we have 1 independent question 1, and 3 integrated questions, questions 2, 3, and 4. Does anyone here by any chance know what this means, independent or integrated, when we talk about the speaking and writing sections of the test? Basically, independent means that, well, it doesn't depend on anything. You will have to talk about yourselves. You will have to give your own opinion on something. So you have to say, I think, I believe, I have this thing happened to me. You have to talk about yourselves. You have to give your own opinions. You have to share your experiences, your ideas, your thoughts. You can say whatever you want as long as it's obviously related. Now, in the integrated questions, on the other hand, you guys have to summarize something. So for these questions, you have to think yourself. You have to think, imagine yourself like you're like you're a news reporter. So you will read something or you will hear something and you have to summarize that. You have to be like, so in this conversation, this person said this and this and that. And you can talk about yourself in the integrated ones. Now, why are they called integrated? Because you're gonna integrate different skills. It's not just gonna be about the way you speak. It's also about your listening comprehension, your reading comprehension. So you get to integrate reading, listening, and speaking in the integrated ones. Reading, listening, and speaking. Because you have to read something and then summarize, or you have to listen to something and then summarize. So you integrate different skills. Whereas in the independent one, the only thing you have to read is a question, and then you don't need to summarize anything else. It's about yourself. Okay, guys? Is that okay so far? Questions? So this week we're going to be going over the first independent question. Let's get started. We're going to watch a video that shows you how exactly you will see this on your screen. So I want you guys to pay attention. This is exactly how your screen will be like, what you will hear. Everything is exactly like this when you're taking the test, when you're doing this question. Okay, guys? So pay attention. This is gonna clear answer all questions that you may have about the format. So what happens? How much time you get? How do you read the question? Do they read it for you? So you will see exactly what happens when you're on this question.
In this question, you will be asked to give your opinion. Number 1. In this question, you will be asked to give your opinion about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response and 45 seconds to speak. State whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. Then explain your reasons, using specific details in your explanation. Learning through online courses is more effective than learning in the traditional classroom setting.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
Okay, guys. So that's exactly how it will be. As you guys could see, first they give you the instructions. Basically, this question consists in you have a question. The question is always like a question that maybe you could have with a friend, like something that you could debate with someone, and it's never anything complicated. You're not gonna have like neuroscience or physics or astronomy here. It's always everyday topics. And you get the question on the screen. The narrator reads the question for you. So you can read at the same time if you want, of course, but the narrator will read it for you. The first tip that I'm going to give you guys is don't wait until the narrator is over for you to start preparing. Don't wait until they say, begin preparing your response after the beep, and then you start preparing. Don't do that. You need to start preparing your response before. You need to see the question very quickly, read the question. I mean, you can read quicker than what the narrator does, because, for example, technically, you wouldn't have to read this. I mean, as soon as you see the word agree or disagree, we're going to talk about this, but as soon as you see these words, you don't have to read anything else. You just read the statement, and then you know that it's agree and disagree, so you say, I agree, I disagree, and then you start preparing. So don't wait until they say that you need to start preparing to start preparing. You can prepare before. That's for one. How many seconds do you guys have to prepare your response in this case?
50 seconds.
15 seconds, exactly. So they give you those 15 seconds to prepare. You, of course, have a timer there, so you can see how much time you have left. Don't see the clock, though, because you will hear, So don't be worried about looking at the clock when you're preparing, okay? Because they will tell you when you have to stop. When you have to worry about seeing the clock is when you're speaking here. But when you're preparing, do whatever you want. You can speak if you want, you can laugh, you can do whatever you want. You can stay in blank. We're gonna talk about what to do, but technically nothing that you do there matters. They're not gonna they're not gonna record what you're doing here. So don't worry about that. Now, then after the 15 seconds are over, you will hear the narrator be like, start speaking after the beep. And then it sounds beep, and then you have to start speaking. When the clock starts running and it starts counting down your 45 seconds, they start recording what you say. So whatever you say during those 45 seconds is your response, and that will be sent to the ATS. There's no way of going back. So during these 45 seconds, you need to answer this question in the way that we're going to learn. Okay, guys? Is that okay so far? Do you have any questions now in terms of the format, the things that you can do, cannot do? All right. So there are different types of questions. We have agree or disagree here. There are the three most common question types are the ones we're going to talk about in a little bit. These are the questions. Please give me a second. Okay, guys. So the three most common question types is the agree and disagree, the preference type, and the good idea type. Agree and disagree is the one we just saw. Does anyone know what agree means? It's a verb. What does agree mean? Does anyone know what agree means or what disagree means?
It's when you have the same opinion of the person, or you don't, and you think that is another way.
Exactly, great. So agree means when you have the same opinion as somebody else. For example, I could say, I don't know, if Geraldine says, I think that cats are better than dogs. If I say I agree, that means that I share her opinion. I do agree. I think that cats are really better than dogs. So I support her idea. Estoy de acuerdo, right? And if I disagree, that means that I don't think that that's true. I think that cats are not better than dogs if I disagree, right? So agree means estar de acuerdo. Disagree is like that's when you don't support an idea. So the one that we just had was disagree and agree, right? The one we read was this. Do you agree or disagree with the following sentence? Learning through online courses is more efficient than learning in the traditional classroom setting. So when you have this question, you have only two options. You can say, one, I agree, I completely agree. I think that, yes, online courses are more effective. That's option one. Or you have a second option, a second way of answering this question. You could disagree. You can say, no, I disagree with this. This is not true. Online courses are not more effective. Right? You have those two options. Or more efficient. Sorry. You only have those two options. The question is, do you agree or do you disagree? They're not asking you about, if the question was different, if it was like, what do you think about this sentence? That would be different, right? Because you could say, well, I think that it depends. I think that in some cases, online is more efficient. I think that in other cases, traditional is better. Or I think that both have their pros and cons. So the question, if the question were different, you could do different things. But in this case, the question is very clear. Do you agree or do you disagree? You can never weigh between the options. You can never be in the middle or be like undecisive about it. You have to either completely agree, be like, yes, that's totally true, or completely disagree. I completely disagree, that's completely not true. Okay, guys? So that's agree and disagree. You always have to take one side. Is that okay so far?
Yes.
The next one is preference, where they ask you about your preferences. So it could be like, do you prefer taking online courses or do you prefer traditional face-to-face classes? This is a little bit more personal, but you have to answer in this exact same way. It's the same. You could say, I prefer online courses, that's option one, or I prefer traditional classes. At the end of the day, if you actually think about it, the first and the second are exactly the same, right? There's no difference. At the end of the day, you either prefer online or you prefer traditional. So same thing here. You have to choose one, completely support that option. You completely prefer online courses over traditional, or you completely prefer traditional over online. You can waver between them. You can say, well, I like both. I don't like either. No, you have to choose one. And finally, we have good or bad idea, which is again, same thing. At the end of the day, it's always the same at the end. And the good idea is like some universities are now offering full online programs and eliminating the option of having traditional classes. Do you think that this is a good idea that students take online classes instead of continuing with their traditional education? So it's exactly the same. So do you think it's a good idea to take online classes, or do you think that it's not a good idea to take online classes and that it's better to take traditional? You still have the same options. You still have to answer in the same way. Okay, guys, so no matter what you have, at the end of the day, you always have two choices. We need to choose one strongly with all your heart. Is that okay so far? Do you have any questions here? Okay. So, in that case, let's continue. What do you guys have to do? First, you get 15 seconds to prepare. 15 seconds is nothing. So you can do much. Don't try to prepare everything you're gonna say. You can do that. But what you can do is think. First of all, you need to think about your answer. You need to think about what option you're going to choose. So what do you guys think in this case? Do we say that we agree that online courses are more effective, or do we say that we disagree that online courses are not more effective? What do you all think? Do we agree or disagree?
I disagree.
All right, we're gonna say we disagree. Online are not more effective. So we disagree that online are more effective. That's our opinion, right? Your response have to have layers. That means that we actually haven't talked about that, have we? We're going to talk about how they evaluate your responses. Okay, but right now let's focus on this. As we were saying, your responses have to have layers. So this is your opinion, that's one layer. It's like, think about it this way. You say, I like pizza, that's one layer, that's your opinion. I like pizza, I prefer pizza. Let's say the question is, do you prefer pizza or sushi? Let's say. So your answer to the question, your opinion is gonna be, I prefer pizza. That's one layer, layer one. You need to have a reason. That's the second layer. You need to say, because pizza is cheaper than sushi. That's your reason. And then you need to have a third layer where you give specific details. So you need to give me an example. You can say, for example, I don't know, one slice of pizza costs around $2, whereas if you have sushi, then you're gonna probably spend around $50 just in dinner, let's say. So maybe that's not true, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but what I am doing there is I'm giving specific details. In my reason, I just said that pizza is cheaper. And in the example, I'm giving specific details as to how much cheaper it is, right? How much a slice of pizza costs versus how much, I don't know, a roll of sushi costs. So those are layers, you know, you need to layer your response. When you're preparing, you just have time to think of two layers: your opinion, your answer to the question, and your reason or your reasons. Truth is, if you want, I mean, it's up to you, and it's up to how you manage your time, it's up to how fast you can speak, and other factors as well. And we're going to see this when we practice, but technically you can have one or two reasons. So my suggestion is try to think of two reasons, but if you can't think of two and you just think of one, that's fine. So our second layer here is going to be our reason. Can you guys tell me why online courses are not more effective or more efficient in this case? Effective? Can you think of one reason why they are not more effective then?
In online courses, you can get distracted easily than in traditional classrooms.
Exactly. There are more distractions. You can concentrate as well. You can get distracted easily. There are many ways to express the same, right? You could say when you take online courses, there are more distractions. You can concentrate that easily. It's harder to focus. Many ways in which you could say the same. Great. Can you maybe think of another reason why online courses are not very effective, perhaps? So if you can think of another reason, that's fine. You know, that's as I was telling you, it's okay. But what you can do, I mean, no matter what happens, is think of another reason that's the same. For example, if I were to say a second reason would be that with traditional courses, you pay more attention. It's the same, right? If I say you pay more attention when you have face-to-face classes, am I not saying the same as before? These reasons are exactly the same. So if you guys are gonna do something like this, then this is wrong because you can repeat. This is called redundancy. When you're redundant, when you repeat the same ideas, and that's something that they don't want. Okay, so you need to be concise when you speak. So if you think of two ideas, but you realize that they're the same, then eliminate one. Okay, guys, if they are different, like let's say, I prefer traditional because, I don't know, you can ask questions in a more direct way. That's different. So different, right? And so no problem there. But if it's the same, you eliminate that. Okay, guys? And that's honestly all you will have time to do. I won't lie to you and tell you that you can do more because you can't. 15 seconds go without even noticing. So that's it. That's what you do when you're preparing. Okay? Do you have any questions for this?
How many reasons do we have to prepare, like to be to get more efficient answer?
One or two. You can personally, I only got one. And well, I had almost a perfect score. I got 29 in the speaking. I think, yeah, 29 in the speaking. So with one reason, you're more than fine. But I mean, it's not about, they don't say anything about this. They don't ask you like for having 2 or 3 or 5 reasons. What matters is that we're going to talk about how they evaluate your response, but I mean, it will depend on how you tend to have your responses. For example, there are some students that for some reason, I don't know, you know, students have different skills. So some students are really good at coming up with different ideas and they speak fast. So if that's your case, then you're probably gonna need 2 reasons. If you end your responses very soon, you will need to have one more reason. But there are other students who take their time, who maybe struggle a little bit more in coming up with ideas, and who also want to go for the safest option because it's safer to just go with one reason. To be honest, that's the safest strategy so that you avoid doing this, repeating. So if you want to go for the safest option, if you want to take your time when elaborating the ideas, if you want to speak fairly slowly, I don't mean like, take a lot of time to say something, but they don't evaluate based on your speed. So to be honest, my suggestion is take your time. A lot of students think that speaking faster doesn't make you more fluent. So to be honest, taking your time is great because that allows you to also avoid making grammar mistakes and that allows you to pronunciate and intonate and articulate the words better as well. So if I'm honest with you guys, the safest strategy is to just go with one reason. But even then, there are going to be some students who end faster. And in those cases, I will tell you, maybe try with 2. So we will see that when you guys are practicing. So I will hear each one of you and I will give you some tips. And if I tell you, I think that maybe you should try to have 2, then try to do that. But if not, 1 is more than enough. Okay, guys?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes, I have one. In this case, to answer this question, well, not exactly this question, but this disagree or agrees answer. Can we say an own experience as example?
Yes, can, and I suggest that you do that. We're going to talk about the content, but yes, everything, the thing about this is that this is about your opinion, right? About what you think. Now, if you guys think about it, our opinions are mostly based on our experiences, right? We believe certain things because we have gone through certain things. So a really good way of supporting your responses is by talking about personal experiences, So yes, when they say using specific details, what they mean is examples. And as you said, giving or talking about your personal experiences is a great way of supporting your ideas because our ideas and our beliefs and thoughts and opinions are mostly based on our experiences. So yes, you can totally talk about yourself and your experiences here. Any other questions so far? Okay, guys. So what do you actually do when it's time for you to speak? What do you say? How do you structure your response? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, what you always at least need to have as like a minimum requirement is, as I was telling you, 3 layers. So the first thing that you always need and make sure that you have, and on a second. Okay, sorry. Okay. The first thing that you guys need to have is an introduction. In your introduction, what you guys are going to do is answer the question as directly as you can. Please don't make it complicated. Don't change the words too much. Don't paraphrase it. Don't try to sound fancier or anything. Don't include any complicated grammar structures here. Answer the question directly as you can. How do you do that? First of all, you are going to always use the same verb that you had in the question. In this case, our question was agree and disagree. So you're going to answer using the same verb. If it's agree or disagree, you need to use the verb. So you're going to say, I strongly agree or I strongly disagree that, and then you need to always, please, repeat at least part of the statement. The statement was, learning through online courses is more effective than learning in the traditional classroom setting. That's obviously long, and I don't want you guys to say all of that. But you can shorten it. You can summarize. You could say, I strongly, in this case, we disagree, right? I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective, right? So I am obviously not saying everything because it's too long, but I am saying what the statement is. It's really important that you guys do that. Sometimes students don't want, and they just say, I strongly disagree, but they don't say what they disagree with. So not a good idea. Always say what you disagree or what you agree with. Okay? Careful with this. You need to say that. You can't say with, you can't say about, you can't say of or anything else. You need to say that. I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective. I strongly disagree that cats are better than dogs. Strongly disagree that students shouldn't use their phones. Whatever it is that you have. Okay, guys? Another thing, use this adverb. If you want, you can change the adverb. You can say, I completely, I totally, I certainly, I definitely, whatever you want, but you need to have an adverb that makes your opinion even strong. Okay, that this allows you to have more confidence, to sound more sure. So, and also for grammar, you know, and for vocabulary. So use an app. Okay, guys, that's your introduction. I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective. Please don't spend more than 8 seconds here. That's more than enough. You can do it in 5. 8 is more than what you need. If you guys speak in seconds, 15 out of 45 is 1/3 of your response. Your introduction can be 1/3. So please don't spend 15, 10 seconds. 8 is more than enough. Okay, guys? Is that okay so far? Any questions? Okay. And then you say that you disagree with or that, whatever. And then you need to give your reason. To give your reason, another thing, don't say, first of all, firstly, to start, to begin with, don't have a transition here. You just need to say, since, because, for, as, due to the fact that you have those options, okay? Since, because, for, as, due to the fact that they all mean the same, they all mean because. I like since, to be honest. I would prefer if you don't say because, but it's okay if you do. To show more vocabulary, you know what I mean? So you can say since, as, both are okay. And you give your reason. So I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective since when you have online classes, it's easier to get distracted, okay? Or you can say differently. It's easier to stay focused. There are more distractions with online courses, whatever you want. My suggestion, best tip I can give you here is keep it short. For some reason, students like to, I'm sorry, guys, with the flu. So for some reason, some students like unnecessarily over-explain the reasons. So maybe you would say, since you can concentrate when you take online classes because you have more distractions and there are more things that can get you distracted. So you don't learn as much as you can and you get distracted really easily, you lose focus, and you don't pay attention as much as you can with traditional classes. You know, you start saying the same, different words, but you say the same. So don't explain it too much. If it doesn't need an explanation, don't explain it. If it needs an explanation, then yes. If it's something a little bit more complicated to understand, yeah, of course you can go with an explanation. But in this case, the idea that it's harder to concentrate is not something too complicated to understand. So there's no explanation needed here. Okay, so keep it short. My suggestion would be from 10 to 20 seconds. More than enough, depending on whether it needs an explanation or not. Okay? Is that okay so far? Any questions here? No? Okay, guys. And finally, last but not least, and probably most importantly, you need to give details. You need to give an example. As we said, you need to have 3 layers at least. Third step, third element is your example. The only requirement for your example, to be honest, is that it's specific and it's detailed. That's the only thing that I will do. There are many options. You have 3 options here. One option is, as I think Adrian was saying, I don't know if I'm wrong though, you could talk about a personal past experience. So what do I mean by this? You can tell a story. If you guys want to, and this goes especially for those of you guys who want to, like, let's say, get 100 or above, if that's your goal, 100 or above means that you're aiming for a C1 or C2 level, right? That's 100 or above. So advanced or proficiency. If you guys want to get one of these, 100 or above, you need to kind of go for this one. Okay, why do you need to go for this one? Because you need to use, or you need to demonstrate, advanced grammar. Look, let me give you an example. You could say, I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective since it's easier to get distracted with online classes. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, my university was only offering online courses. They weren't offering any traditional classes. Therefore, I was forced to take most of my classes online. I took 6 different classes: biology, archaeology, sociobiology, were 3 of them. And I remember that when I was having my classes, my online courses, I got distracted too easily. Sometimes I would be on my phone, I would be scrolling down through social media. Sometimes my little siblings would come around and make some noise and I would get distracted. Sometimes I would start chatting with my friends. There were too many distractions that didn't allow me to pay proper attention to the class and therefore learn. In the end, I failed those 3 classes that I mentioned before, right? So look at the grammar that I used. You know, I was using more than just one tense. I said, during the COVID-19 pandemic, my university was offering. That's past continuous. I took these classes, simple past. I used to get distracted really easy. That's another structure. I could even use a third condition. I could say, if I had taken these classes in the traditional way, I probably would have passed. That's the third condition. So when you guys do this, when you talk about stories in the past, this gives you the chance to use more grammar. And remember that if you guys want to have a good, like a C1 score, 100 or above, if you're aiming that high, you need to demonstrate that you can use different grammar points effectively, you know, so that you have the grammar for an advanced or proficient student. But I don't want you guys, please don't force yourselves. I know that some of you don't need this score, right? Some of you guys need a B1, B2. And if you don't need a C1, C2, and if you guys don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel ready for using all of these tenses, because I have experience with this, you know, like I would say maybe 70% of the students that I prepare still struggle a little bit with grammar. So sometimes it can be hard to conjugate verbs in the past tense. I do know that. So if you guys want to avoid risking making mistakes, grammar mistakes, which is definitely going to lower your score, if you guys want to aim for a C1 or C2 and you go with a past experience, but you make grammar mistakes because you don't know how to use past tenses, that's not going to get you a C1, C2. That's going to get you a E2 because you're making mistakes. So careful, you know, if you're going to go for these, you need to be really prepared. You need to be good with the grammar. You need to be confident, okay? But if you don't really need that score, you don't have to complicate yourselves. You can still go with a personal experience or like a personal example, but do it in the present. Make it simpler. You can say, for example, right now I'm taking 2 online classes, biology and psychology. I'm still giving details. Remember that was the requirement, right? To be detailed. What class you're taking? How much was your grade? What you get distracted with? You need to give specific details. You can't just talk about general ideas. You need to give specific details. So, for example, right now I'm taking an online biology class. And whenever I'm having class, I have classes in the afternoon from 2 to 4. And I'm always getting distracted on something. During that time, my favorite TV show is usually playing in the afternoon. And to be honest, I really get distracted with that. I end up watching the show, or if not, I end up on my phone, chatting with my friends. So I totally get distracted and I feel that I'm not learning, right? What tenses are you using? Simple present, present continuous. That's all you need, you know? Easier than saying when I was or during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's easier, you're talking about the present, but remember to give details, right? So what class are you taking? When do you take this class? What gets you distracted? Don't forget about the details. All of them require details. Okay, guys, that's a second option, easier, safer. And you also have a third that I don't recommend you use much, but I'm also going to give it to you. And that's to talk about facts. So facts can also be in the past or in the present. You know, they could be past, they could be present. For example, you could say, for instance, or for example, I recently read an article from the BBC News that was analyzing the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on students' grades, university students' grades. And they found that in average, students' grades were lower, mainly because of the fact that they couldn't concentrate that well. Students' grades were 20% lower than the year before when there was no pandemic. And students have reported in different surveys that it's because of the lack of concentration. Okay, so it's a fact. It's a fact in the past. I'm talking about one specific time in the past, and I'm giving numbers, right? The students' grades were 20% lower. In average, students, I don't know, 95% of students have reported to get distracted on the phone, let's say. You can make up numbers, make up statistics, whatever you want. And it could also be in the present, right? I am reading this article that, I don't know, that says that students' grades are 20% lower when they take online courses, comparing them to when they take traditional courses. And students say that this is because they get distracted mainly on their phones, or because they don't have a quiet environment at home and they get distracted with their family members, let's say. So I'm still giving specific details, as you can see, but it could be present or past. I don't recommend that you use this because it's harder to think about facts, to be honest. It's harder to make up something that's logical, that's coherent, that makes sense, that is not like that's completely, like, yeah, like, I don't want to say a word, but it sounds coherent, you know? So that would be the third option. What I recommend is that you guys evaluate yourselves, practice with the three of them, and see what works better for you, especially. Okay, guys? So, is this okay so far? Do you guys have any questions about this? Think about it. No questions, really?
These examples can have to be real.
Good question, and no, not at all. To be honest, they don't care about what you say. I mean, as long as it makes sense, it's fine, you know, but they are not going to check your examples. You can totally make them up. It's not about the content. So that's why I say usually keep it simpler. Like, you don't have to talk about, because believe it or not, for example, when we talk about the reasons, I have seen some students that make it too complicated. I don't know why, but they're like, I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective since our brain needs a stimuli that is only available when you have a face-to-face interaction with the person that is teaching you that something. Therefore, you're not able to connect really through a screen. So they make, like, I mean, they are good ideas, but it's too complicated. And there's no reason why to do that, because they don't care. Like, they don't care about what you say in that sense. I mean, they care that it's logical, that it's answering the question, that it makes sense, and that it's related. But it doesn't matter if it's a complex idea or if it's a simple one. It doesn't matter if it's a true story or not. what matters is that it relates to the topic. Another thing that I forgot to say is, obviously, guys, these three things have to be connected, right? You can say, since you can concentrate, talk about concentration here, and then you say, for instance, when you go to university, you say, when you don't go to university, you say time, let's say. So time and concentration are not related, right? So careful there. The three of them have to be connected. As long as that's okay, those three are connected, then no, they don't care if it's true or not.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. Any other question?
Yeah, teacher. What about, for example, in speaking using contractions, or it's not very well, and the other one it's about, for example, use facts, authors. I think it's possible.
Okay, good question. So first of all, as for contractions, and as for the language use in general, truth is, this is an academic question. Even though they could ask about your relationships with your friends, they can ask you about whether you like to run or to walk. They're not going to ask you like academic things, but at the end of the day, your response should be academic. So what that means is that you should keep it a little bit formal. That's why we're using words like, for instance, since and stuff, and we're using an academic structure, but you need to keep it natural too. So it's between creating a balance between sounding natural, not sounding weird, and also sounding academic, right? So don't use, like, let's say, don't curse here, or don't use inappropriate language. But contractions you can use, no problem. In the writing section, you won't be able to use contractions in one part of the writing. But in this case, contractions are normal when we speak. This is speaking. So yes, go ahead, go for it. That you use, I mean, using contractions doesn't make you, like not using contractions doesn't make you more academic. So you can totally use contractions, no problem. And as for your second question about the facts, yes, if you want, I mean, you don't need to cite, right? You don't need to say, so the source of this that I'm saying is, and then you need to cite that source. You don't need to do that. No references are needed. But if you want, you can do that. So as I did my example, right? You could say, according to a research done by the University of Chicago. You can do that, or you can say, I read a magazine. So no problem if you cite authors or you don't. If you cite your sources or you don't. Both are okay. Obviously, it's more detailed when you do cite, right? When you're like, so, I don't know, the author that wrote this book, so you're being specific, more specific. But again, it doesn't have to be true, so don't worry, you don't have to know like quotes or articles or researches. So it's up to you. No problem if you cite or you don't, but maybe if you make something up, if you say that you read it in a specific article, in a specific newspaper, in a specific research done by a specific group of students, then that can give you the chance to be more detailed and to include more details. So it is recommended that you give some more details. So maybe it will be better if you do cite, but it's not necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other question? Okay, guys, remember this is 45 seconds. So most of you are gonna be fine just there. But as I was telling you before, there are some cases in which students finish sooner. If that's your case, I mean, first of all, you should never run out of time, and that is just practice. Believe it, is practice. The more you practice, the better you get. The more used you get to the time you have, and you get used to it. It's okay. But if you happen to have extra time constantly, then you need to think of a second reason. So obviously, depending on the amount of time you have, if you have like 3 seconds left, or even 5, or even 8, then you don't need to think of another reason. What you can do is just go with a conclusion. The conclusion is optional, completely optional. They're not going to give you more points for having a conclusion. Okay, I didn't have one, but if you have extra time, you don't know what to do with that time, go with a conclusion. Say, if you have 8 seconds, make it longer. This is the main reason why I totally disagree that online courses are more effective. This is the main reason why I don't think that online courses are more effective than traditional classes. Right? 8 seconds. You have less time. This is why I feel that online courses are not very effective. If you have 3 seconds, that's why I think so. That's why I feel this way. Right? If you don't have some extra time, go with a conclusion. If you have 15, 17 seconds, 13 seconds, you may want to think of another reason. You say, besides, furthermore, with online courses, you can ask questions to your professors, not as easily as you can with traditional classes. Right? So I'm adding a second reason that is obviously not related to the first, that it's different. That makes sense as well. You don't need another example, but if you still have more time, you can go with another example if you want, if you have more time. Okay, so it depends on the student, really. As I told you before, it doesn't matter how many reasons you have. So don't force yourself to have 2 or to just have 1. It's not a problem. It depends on how you manage your own time. But what you shouldn't do is run out of time. Okay, guys? Is that okay? Any question now? Okay, guys, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to give you guys a sample response. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the way they evaluate your response, okay? And we're going to be analyzing a couple of sample responses. And of course, we're going to be practicing. So you guys are going to be answering a couple of questions. I'll give you some feedback. It's going to be fun. But let me show you guys how I would do it, maybe, so that you can analyze my response as well. I strongly disagree that online courses are more effective than traditional ones, since when you're taking online classes, it's easier to get distracted. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, I was almost forced to take online classes, given that my university wasn't offering any traditional ones at the moment. And I remember one in particular. I took a biology course that was from 2 to 4 p.m. During that time, my little siblings used to already get back from school, and that was a huge concentration for me. The noise they made me not be able to concentrate in class, and I ended up failing the class. Right? So it's not perfect, but it does its job. Right? I had my introduction, I had my reason, my example with details, it was connected. I tried to have appropriate vocabulary, like things like failing the class, taking online courses, that type of vocabulary. Maybe I could have used better transitions. Instead of and, I could have said, I don't know, in fact, I can think of one specific class, my biology class. Instead of saying, so I couldn't concentrate, I could say, therefore, I was not able to concentrate, maybe. So, I mean, there's always something to get better at, but in general, that's the idea, right? And another thing that you need to do is constantly look at the clock, see how much time you have, because you need to accommodate your response to the time you have, not the other way around. Okay, guys? So, is that okay? Any questions, comments now?
We have to schedule the space to practice this speaking part?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. We are going to practice in class. We're going to practice tomorrow and on Friday. But if you want to practice in a more customized way, just one-on-one, then yes, you do have to schedule your speaking sessions. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be practicing. You guys are going to be answering questions and I'll be giving you feedback.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, guys. Then in that case, that's gonna be it for today's session. Tomorrow we'll practice, don't worry, don't forget. And please, before you go, also don't forget our daily survey for today. It should be on your screens. I have Okay, guys, thank you so much. So I will see you guys then tomorrow. Hope you have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.